The restaurant had always been a noisy place. Plates clinking, chairs moving, people laughing, kids asking for extra fries. This happened every day. But in the middle of all that noise worked a quiet young waitress who somehow moved softly through the chaos. She wasn't the kind of person people noticed at first glance. She kept her hair tied back, wore the same simple uniform as everyone else, and always carried a small smile that made guests feel comfortable. Most customers only knew her as the quiet girl who brings the food on time, but nobody really knew much else about her. Every morning, she arrived before the doors opened. She cleaned tables, arranged napkin holders, polished glasses, and checked the salt shakers like it was her own home. Even though she didn't talk much, she always helped anyone who needed it. If a coworker dropped something, she was the first to pick it up. If someone was having a stressful shift, she quietly took one of their tables without being asked. She didn't do these things to get attention. She simply liked things running smoothly and people being at ease. But there was something about her that not many people noticed. Whenever music played in the background, maybe a soft old song from the radio or the upbeat tune, the cooks liked her eyes shifted just a little. It was like she drifted into another world for a moment. Her steps became lighter, and her face glowed a bit more. Some coworkers had caught her humming when she thought no one was around, but the sound was so gentle that it disappeared under the noise of the kitchen. One afternoon, while cleaning after the lunch rush, she stood near the corner wiping down a tray. The cooks were joking loudly, customers were leaving, and someone had forgotten to turn off the small speaker near the bar. A slow, soulful song played. The waitress wasn't even aware she had started humming along. Her voice blended so naturally with the music that if someone wasn't paying attention, they would think it was part of the original song. A coworker carrying a stack of plates stopped walking. He listened for a second, surprised by the softness and purity in her voice. He didn't say anything at that moment, but the memory stayed in his mind. The restaurant had a small tradition: every weekend something simple but fun. On Saturday evenings, they invited a local singer or acoustic guitarist to perform a few songs while customers ate. It wasn't a big show or anything fancy. It was just something to give the place a warm, friendly feeling and attract a few extra guests. People liked hearing familiar songs while enjoying their meals. But on one particular Friday, everything went wrong. The singer who was supposed to perform the next day sent a message saying he wasn't feeling well and wouldn't be able to make it. The manager frowned at his phone and sighed heavily. The weekend crowds expected something special, and without music the place might feel too ordinary. A few less customers might not seem like a big deal. But for a small restaurant, every detail mattered. The manager gathered the team in the kitchen and explained the problem. Everyone looked around at each other, trying to think of a solution. Someone jokingly said, "Maybe one of us can perform." Another person laughed, saying they could barely sing in the shower. But then the coworker who had heard the waitress humming earlier that day spoke up. "What about her?" he said gently, pointing toward the quiet waitress who was arranging forks in a tidy line. She froze. The spoon in her hand almost slipped. The others turned to look at her, not in a bad way, but with curiosity. She blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" she asked softly. "You can sing," he said. "I heard you earlier. Your voice is really nice." Her face turned warm with embarrassment. She shook her head quickly. No, I wasn't really singing. I was just humming." "That's still singing," another coworker added with a smile. The manager didn't push her. He simply asked, "Would you like to try it?" "Only if you feel comfortable. We don't want to force anything." She felt her heart beating faster. Her hands felt shaky. She had always loved music more than anything, but performing in front of people, even the thought made her stomach twist. She had never imagined herself on a stage, not even a small one like the corner of the restaurant. She tried to laugh it off. "I don't think I can do it. People won't want to listen to me." A regular customer standing near the counter overheard the conversation. He was an older man who came in almost every day for tea and a simple meal. He always spoke kindly and observed things more than he talked. He stepped forward slowly and said, "Sometimes the world needs to hear the song you're hiding. You may not think you're good enough, but you might surprise yourself. And you might even surprise all of us." His voice wasn't pushy. It was calm, steady, warm. She looked at him, then at her coworkers. They weren't laughing at her. They weren't teasing. They truly believed she had something special. But still, fear took over. She shook her head again. "I don't want to ruin anything. What if I mess up? What if I forget the words? What if people don't like it?" The customer smiled softly. "What if they love it?" She didn't have an answer. All evening, she tried to focus on her work, but the idea kept returning to her mind. Every plate she carried, every glass she filled, every order she wrote down, her thoughts kept drifting back to that conversation. A part of her wanted to run far from the idea, to stay in her safe little bubble where no one expected anything from her. But another part, a small brave part, whispered that maybe this was something she needed to try. When her shift ended, she went home, feeling tired but unable to sleep. She sat on her bed, listening to her favorite songs on her phone. She hummed along quietly, almost without realizing it. She imagined what it would feel like to sing in front of people. Would they stare at her? Would her voice shake? Would she embarrass herself? Then she remembered the customer's words. What if they love it? The next day she walked into the restaurant feeling nervous. The staff gathered around her again, asking gently if she had made a decision. She hesitated, took a long breath, and finally said, "Okay, I'll try." But only one song. That was enough to make everyone cheer softly with excitement. They set up a small microphone near the corner where performers usually stood. It wasn't a real stage, just a little space cleared of chairs, with a single warm light shining down. But to her, it looked like the biggest stage in the world. She kept wiping her palms on her apron. Her stomach felt like it was full of butterflies. Customers began entering the restaurant, ordering food, smiling, chatting. Some had heard there might be a surprise performance tonight. Some didn't know anything and just came for dinner. As the evening rush slowed slightly, the manager nodded to her. "It's time," he said gently. She walked toward the microphone slowly, feeling every step echo inside her chest. People turned their heads, wondering what was happening. A few murmured softly, surprised to see the shy waitress standing there. Her hands trembled. Her breath felt tight. She looked at her co-workers, who nodded encouragingly. She looked at the older regular customer, who sat with his hands folded, smiling calmly as if to say, "You can do this." She took one more breath. She closed her eyes. The room waited in silence, and just as she opened her mouth to sing, everything ended on that moment, hanging in the air, leaving everyone wondering what would happen next. The quiet settled over the restaurant like someone had turned off the world for a moment. The young waitress stood there with her eyes closed, her hands shaking slightly at her sides, her breath caught somewhere in her chest. So many thoughts raced through her mind: the fear of failing, the worry of being judged, the pressure of standing in front of people for the first time. But somewhere inside all that fear, a tiny spark pushed her forward, reminding her that she came this far. She had agreed to try. Now she just needed to let the first note out, and then, slowly, she began to sing. That it started soft. So soft that the people closest to her leaned forward, unsure whether the sound came from the speakers or from her. Her voice was warm but gentle, like a whisper carried by wind. It didn't demand attention. It invited it, and soon, as she became more comfortable, the notes grew steadier. Her voice rose and settled in a way that made people stop mid. Forks paused. Conversations faded. Even the cooks at the back lowered the flame on the stove, unsure why they suddenly felt the need to listen. Her voice wasn't loud or dramatic, but it had something else, something honest, something full of quiet emotion that made people feel like they were hearing more than a song. They were hearing a piece of her heart. As she sang, her fear slowly melted away. Her eyes opened halfway, then fully. She saw the faces in front of her, not judging, not laughing, but watching in a gentle, almost amazed silence. And with each second her confidence grew. Her shoulders relaxed, her grip loosened, and her voice flowed like it had been waiting years for this moment. A mother with her little daughter at the corner table held the child a bit closer, whispering, "Listen, sweetheart, isn't she lovely?" The little girl nodded, her eyes wide as if she were watching magic. A couple eating near the window held hands under the table, smiling softly as the song filled the room, reminding them of the simple joy of unexpected beauty. The older, regular customer sat still with a peaceful expression, his eyes slightly shining. It was as if he had known all along what she was capable of. Even the manager, who had heard many singers come through over the years, felt a surprise rise in his chest. This wasn't someone who trained professionally. This wasn't someone who had been on stage before. This was a natural, effortless talent, the kind that comes from a place deeper than practice. A voice shaped by story, by quiet evenings alone, by dreams she didn't share with anyone. When she reached the soft ending of the song, the last note drifted into the air like it wasn't ready to leave. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Nobody even breathed. The moment just stayed there, pure and still. Then suddenly the room burst into applause. It wasn't polite clapping. It was warm, loud, and full of genuine excitement. People stood up from their seats. Some cheered. A few whistled. The little girl jumped and clapped her hands high above her head. The cooks came out of the kitchen, still holding towels, smiling like they were proud of one of their own. The young waitress looked around with wide eyes, shocked. She pressed a hand over her mouth, overwhelmed by emotion. She had never been clapped for like this. She had never been seen like this. Her coworkers rushed toward her with bright faces. You were amazing. We didn't know you had that inside you. You should perform every weekend. She could barely speak. Her voice trembled with disbelief. I didn't think anyone would like it. The older customer stepped closer and said in his warm, steady tone, not like it. We loved it. Her eyes filled slightly, but she quickly blinked the tears away, embarrassed. She wasn't used to being the center of attention. She wasn't used to praise. For so long she had lived quietly, working hard, keeping her dreams tucked away where nobody could judge them. That night changed something inside her. After the applause faded and service continued, people kept coming up to her, thanking her, complimenting her, asking if she had ever performed before. Some even asked when she would sing again. For the rest of the evening, she walked around with a glow she didn't even realize she had. And when the shift finally ended and the restaurant closed, the manager called her over. He said gently, we've had many performers come through here, some good, some okay, but you're different. You connect with people. Your voice tells a story. If you ever want to sing regularly on weekends, even just one song each night, we'd be happy to have you. She stared at him, stunned. You really think people would want that? He smiled. They already do. She didn't answer right away. She looked around the restaurant, the tables she wiped every day, the floor she swept, the counter she organized, the chairs she arranged. She loved her job, but she had always felt something missing, something she never talked about, something she only felt when she hummed to herself or listened to songs. Late at night, her heart whispered the truth. She had always dreamed of singing, dreamed of being heard, dreamed of moments like the one she had just lived, but dreaming and doing were very different things. She wasn't sure if she could handle the attention. She didn't know if she was ready for the world to know her talent, but she did know something important. Singing made her feel alive in a way nothing else did. I'll think about it, she said softly, not rejecting the offer, but not rushing into it either. On her way home that night, the cool breeze touched her face gently. She walked slowly, feeling lighter than she had in years. For once, the weight of her worries didn't push down on her shoulders. Instead, she felt a quiet excitement growing inside her, a hope she hadn't allowed herself to feel before. At home, she sat on her bed and replayed the evening in her mind. The applause, the smiles, the warmth, the feeling of being seen and appreciated. She knew she would never forget it. The next day, when she returned to work, something surprising happened. A few customers from the previous night returned, not for dinner, but to ask if she would sing again. They didn't pressure her. They simply said they wanted to hear her voice once more, because it made them feel calm, happy, emotional, something they couldn't explain. Her coworkers looked at her proudly. The manager raised an eyebrow playfully. Looks like you have fans already. She blushed deeply but couldn't hide her smile. That evening, she made a decision. After all, the customers had been served and the restaurant felt settled and warm. She approached the manager. Can I sing one more song tonight? She asked quietly, his face lit up. Of course. Word spread quickly around the restaurant. People whispered with excitement. Some even called friends to tell them to come before it was too late. When she stepped up to the small corner again, the familiar nerves fluttered in her stomach. But this time, she also felt something else, confidence, hope, and a gentle sense of belonging. The music started softly. She closed her eyes. And this time, when she sang, she wasn't just releasing a quiet dream. She was stepping into a new chapter of her life, one where she didn't hide her gift, one where she allowed people to see her true self. Her voice filled the restaurant again, stronger than the night before. People listened with the same quiet wonder, as if the whole world slowed down just to hear her. By the time she finished, the applause returned louder, warmer, more meaningful than ever. She smiled, a real, bright smile she rarely showed. That night, she finally understood something she never admitted to herself before. She wasn't just a waitress with a hidden talent. She was someone with a voice that could touch hearts, including her own. And she didn't need a big stage. She didn't need fame. She didn't need perfection. She just needed one small corner, one simple song, and people who believed in her. And from that day on, the restaurant wasn't just her workplace. It became the place where she discovered who she truly was and where others discovered her too.